Welcome to Strength Foundation.
Hey everyone, if you're getting ready for that NSCA personal training exam, you already know Chapter 11 is a beast. Well, in this explainer, we are going to cut right through all the fluff. We're going to focus on the exact fitness evaluation protocols and norms that you need to know. The goal here? To make sure you walk into that exam feeling totally prepared and confident. So here's how we're going to tackle this. Think of it like you're taking on a brand new client. First, we'll cover the absolute basics, the foundational checks. Then we'll dive into body composition to get a real blueprint of your client. After that, we'll test their engine with some cardio assessments. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, measuring their raw strength and power, seeing how well they move with agility and flexibility tests, and we'll wrap it all up by screening their overall movement quality. It all fits together, you'll see. Okay, let's kick things off with the absolute foundations of assessment. Seriously, before you even think about programming a squat or a press, you have to get a baseline. These first steps are totally non-negotiable. They're all about safety, and they give you that crucial starting point for every single program you're ever going to build. Now, pay attention here because this is a huge concept for the exam. A fitness evaluation, it's not just some random checklist of tests you run through. No way. It's a whole process. It's about choosing the right tests for the right client, doing them correctly, and this is really the key, taking all that data and turning it into a smart, effective training program. It's the so what that matters. So, what are the first two things you measure? Before a single rep, before any movement, you're checking heart rate and blood pressure. You can think of these as your green light. They're a quick safety check, a snapshot of the client's cardiovascular system that tells you, yep, we're good to go, or, let's hold on a minute. But, it's not always as simple as just taking a pulse. Just look at all the stuff that can throw off a heart rate reading. The coffee your client slammed on the way over, the traffic they sat in, it all has an effect. For your exam, you absolutely need to know these variables. And in the real world, it just means you've got to try to keep things consistent. Test at the same time of day, under similar conditions, so you know your data is reliable. And when it comes to blood pressure, precision is everything. You can absolutely bet the exam is going to hit you with questions on these common mistakes. The big one? Using the wrong cuff size. It's so common. Too small, and the reading is going to be artificially high. Too big, and it's going to be artificially low. Every little error here messes with your data, so you really have to nail down the correct procedure. All right, so we've got our vitals. We know it's safe to proceed. Now we can move on to gauging body composition. This is where we really start to build the client's blueprint. We're looking past that number on the bathroom scale and finding out what their body is actually composed of. The ratio of lean mass to fat mass. And you've got a whole bunch of tools in your toolkit to do this. You've got the quick and dirty stuff like BMI, and then more hands-on methods like skinfold calipers. Each one has its own trade-offs, right? Some are more accurate, some are cheaper, some are less, invasive for the client. A huge part of being a great trainer and what the NSCA wants to see is that you know which tool to pull out of the box for the right person and the right situation. Speaking of skin folds, look at the detail here. This technique requires some serious precision. You have to find the exact anatomical landmarks to get an accurate measurement. And here's a pro tip for your exam. Write this one down. For the sake of consistency, all skin fold measurements are always taken on the right side of the body. Always. Okay, next up, let's test the client's engine with some cardio endurance tests. Now, we're mostly going to be talking about submaximal tests here. And you might be asking, why submaximal? Well, think about it. Pushing a brand new client to their absolute can't-breathe limit on day one, it's not just impractical, it can be unsafe. These submax tests are great because they let us estimate their VO2 max, which is the gold standard, without having to completely floor them. And this quote right here, this is the why behind it all. It's the scientific reason these tests work. Basically, what it's saying is that as you work harder, your heart rate goes up in a really predictable, straight-line fashion. Because of that linear relationship, we can make a really educated guess about their max without actually having to go there. That's the key assumption. Let's look at a classic example, the YMCA cycle test. See the sample data? It shows you exactly how it works. You have the client pedal through a few different stages, and each stage lasts about 3 minutes. The whole goal during each stage is to let their heart rate level off, what we call reaching a steady state. Once they're stable, you bump up the resistance and move them onto the next, slightly harder stage. Okay, so you've collected all this data. What do you do with it? Well, you plot it on a graph just like this. You put the work rate on the bottom, heart rate on the side. You mark down your data points from the test, and then you draw a line of best fit right through them. Now, here's a magic trick. You keep drawing that line up until it hits their estimated max heart rate. Where those two lines cross, that gives you their predicted max workload. From there, you just plug it into a formula, and boom, you've got their estimated VO2 max. All right, let's shift gears. We're moving on to strength and power. And listen, it is so important that you know these are not the same thing. They're two different qualities. We're not just measuring how much force someone can produce, we're also measuring how fast they can produce it. You absolutely have to know the difference. Let me put it this way. Strength is the maximum weight you can possibly lift. Period. Power is how explosively you can move that weight. So strength is tested with a slow, grinding 1-rep max. Power? That's tested with something fast and explosive, like a vertical jump. And here's exactly how you do that vertical jump test. It's a classic for a reason, a super effective way to measure lower body power. The math is easy. You just measure their standing reach, then measure how high they jump, and subtract the first number from the second. That difference is their vertical jump score. Simple as that. Next up, we're diving into agility and flexibility. This section is all about how efficiently a person moves. Can they change direction on a dime? And do they have the necessary range of motion in their joints to move freely and without restriction? The T-test is a go-to for agility, and it's great because it's not just one movement. You've got forward sprinting, lateral shuffling, and backpedaling all rolled into one. Here's another key detail for your exam. Watch their feet on the shuffle. If they cross their feet over, that's a no-go. The trial doesn't count and they have to do it again. When it comes to upper body flexibility, the back scratch test is super simple but really telling. It gives you a great snapshot of their shoulder mobility, and that's so important, not just for athletes, but for everyday life. I mean, think about just reaching up to grab something from a high cabinet. And finally, we've arrived at movement quality screens. So we're shifting our focus here. We're no longer measuring how much or how fast. Now we're looking at how well someone moves. This is absolutely critical for spotting those little imbalances or funky movement patterns that could potentially lead to an injury down the road. A great tool for this is the plumb line. This is for looking at their static posture, which is just a fancy way of saying how they hold themselves when they're just standing still. You use this weighted string to create a perfectly vertical line, and then you see how their body lines up against it. It makes it super easy to spot things like forward head posture or if one shoulder is hiking up higher than the other. Okay, so we've seen them standing still. Now let's get them moving. We're shifting from a static to a dynamic assessment. This comparison is perfect. On the left, you see a solid single leg squat. On the right, you see common faults. As a trainer, you need to train your eye to catch these things. See that knee diving inward? That's classic knee valgus. Spotting these little compensations is everything because you can't fix what you can't see. And really, this is what it all comes down to. This sums up the whole chapter. Your job as a personal trainer is so much more than just counting reps. The real challenge, the real art, is gathering all of this data and then using it to see where your client stands. This is what lets you graduate from cookie-cutter programs and start designing something truly personal, something that's actually going to work. Because at the end of the day, the evaluation isn't the end of the story. It's the very first page. All this data, it's the map, but you are the guide. So the real question isn't just, can you perform these tests correctly? The real question is, are you ready to take this information and use it to genuinely help someone build a better, stronger life?